TRS 2498 students. Today we discuss the most important topic in respiration, concept-oriented topic, that is transportation of gases. Transportation of, before that, just we will discuss one important one. Diffusion membrane. So the membrane, across it gases are diffused. So oxygen is taken into the blood, carbon dioxide released out through a membrane, what is called a diffusion membrane. That diffusion membrane is nothing but the alveolar membrane. This is alveoli. Air enters, air passes out. And this alveoli is surrounded by capillary wall. This is capillary. So alveolar membrane and endothelium of capillary. In between alveolar membrane and capillary wall, there is a basement membrane formed by the two basement membranes of alveolar wall and endothelium wall. So alveolar membrane, basement membrane, endothelium of blood capillary, endothelium of blood capillary. These three layers together constitute diffusion membrane. First point. What are the layers present in diffusion membrane? That is the question. Alveolar membrane and endothelium of blood capillary, in between basement membrane. These three layers constitute diffusion membrane. And the thickness of diffusion membrane, next to it, less than a millimeter. Less than a millimeter. That is second. You have to know the diagram also. It is also important. Once asked me, I'm saying. So diffusion membrane is formed by first objective point. Alveolar membrane, single cell thick, simple squamous epithelium is found in. So alveolar membrane is formed by simple squamous epithelium. Endothelium of the blood capillary is formed by simple squamous epithelium. So the diffusion membrane has three layers. One is alveolar membrane, second one is endothelium of blood capillary, in between basement membrane. The thickness of the diffusion membrane is less than a millimeter. Third point, the diffusion of gases depends upon the thickness of the membrane, thickness of the diffusion membrane. Second point, solubility of gases. So the rate of diffusion across the diffusion membrane depends on, first one, the thickness of the diffusion membrane. Second one, the solubility of gases. That is another objective point. Next one. Next will be the solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 times greater than that of oxygen. Next will be the solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 times greater than that of oxygen. That is the next point. So these are the three important points with respect to the diffusion of gases. Diffusion membrane has three layers. Alveolar membrane made up of simple squamous epithelium, followed by basement membrane, followed by endothelium of capillary, blood capillary, also made up of simple squamous epithelium. Next one. The rate of diffusion depends upon thickness of the diffusion membrane and solubility of the gases. Next bit. The solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 times greater than that of oxygen. These are the three important points that you are doing. Next, transportation of gases. Study. Transportation of gases. 1 minute. Microphone పెట్టుకోలేదు మర్చిపోయా. Transportation of gases. First one, medium of transport. First bit, medium of transport of gases. Blood. First bit. Next bit, 100 ml of blood delivers 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues. Next, 100 ml of blood delivers 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the lungs or to the alveoli. These are the two other important points. So, 100 ml of blood delivers 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues. In return, 100 ml of blood delivers 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. Next one. Oxygen, carbon dioxide. You see, 97% of oxygen is transported in the form of oxyhemoglobin by present in RBC. So hemoglobin is present in RBC and the hemoglobin carries 97% of oxygen to the tissues. Remaining 3% of oxygen is transported to tissue in dissolved state. In dissolved state in plasma. So that is the transportation of oxygen. 97% of oxygen is transported by RBC to the tissues. In RBC, hemoglobin is present. Hemoglobin combines with oxygen, forming oxyhemoglobin. Whereas 3% of oxygen is transported in the form of dissolved state of plasma, in plasma. Coming to carbon dioxide, you say 7% of carbon dioxide is transported by the blood in dissolved state. 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBC in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. Carbaminohemoglobin, HbCO2, whereas 70% of carbon dioxide is transported by the blood in the form of bicarbonates. That is comparative account of the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide. 97% of oxygen is transported by the blood in the form of oxyhemoglobin, whereas 3% of oxygen is transported by the blood in the form of dissolved state. Coming to carbon dioxide transport, 7% of carbon dioxide is transported in dissolved state, where because solubility is more, solubility of carbon dioxide is more than that of oxygen. That's why 7% of carbon dioxide is transported by the blood in the form of dissolved state, and 20-25% carbon dioxide in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. And third, that 70% of carbon dioxide from tissues to the alveoli transported by the blood in the form of bicarbonate. Definitely you remember all these 5 points. 97 plus 3, 20 to 25, 7 and 70%. That is the transportation of blood. So oxygen is transported to the tissues in 2 ways, as a dissolved state, as oxyhemoglobin, whereas carbon dioxide is transported to tissues in 3 ways: dissolved state, carbaminohemoglobin, and bicarbonates. Right. Now, oxygen transport. As I just told that most of the oxygen is transported by the blood in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin is found in RBC. Found in RBC. Hemoglobin is made up of 4 heme groups attached with the 4 polypeptide chains, 2 alpha polypeptides, 2 beta polypeptide chains, and to each polypeptide there is a heme group. Heme group contains iron atom. Hemoglobin contains iron. How many iron atoms are there? 4 iron atoms in 4 heme groups. How many polypeptide chains in hemoglobin molecule? 4 polypeptide chains. 2 alpha polypeptide, 2 beta polypeptide chains. Okay. Now, this is one heme group. This is another heme group. This is another heme group. This is another heme group. Contains ferrous, iron. Attached to this, alpha polypeptide, beta polypeptide, alpha polypeptide, beta polypeptide. So hemoglobin molecule contains 2 alpha polypeptide, 2 beta polypeptide chains, and 4 heme groups. Each heme group contains 1 iron atom. Another analytical and important point. One RBC contains 250 millions of hemoglobin molecules. One RBC contains 250 millions of hemoglobin molecules. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen atoms. So each hemoglobin molecule can carry maximum of 4 oxygen molecules. And each oxygen molecule is attached to iron atom of hemoglobin forming HbO2, oxyhemoglobin, HbO. So each hemoglobin molecule can carry maximum of 4 oxygen molecules, because each oxygen molecule is combined with the heme group or iron atom of the heme group. There are 4 heme groups, so 4 oxygen molecules are carried by 4 heme groups of 1 hemoglobin molecule. So total number of hemoglobin molecules approximately 250 millions. So how many oxygen molecules, maximum oxygen molecules can be carried out by 1 RBC? So 1 RBC can carry maximum of 1 billion oxygen molecule. Another point. Each RBC having 250 millions of hemoglobin molecules can carry 1 billion of oxygen molecules at a rate of 4 oxygen molecules by 1 hemoglobin molecule. Hemoglobin and oxygen combines to form oxyhemoglobin. Here, hemoglobin, the oxygen is combined with heme group of the hemoglobin. Heme group of the hemoglobin present this point. Next one. Next point. HbO2 formation, oxyhemoglobin formation depends on PCO2 concentration, PCO2 pressure. So the HbO2 formation depends upon mainly on PCO2 pressure. So what are the factors which are responsible for the formation of HbO2? HbO2 formation depends upon primarily HbO2 formation depends upon PCO2, hydrogen ion concentration. Next, temperature. These are the factors influencing the formation of oxyhemoglobin. So oxyhemoglobin formation depends upon the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration and temperature. All these three factors influence the formation of HbO2 or oxyhemoglobin. Now, if we take a graphical representation of HbO2 or the saturation of oxyhemoglobin and the partial pressure of oxygen. Partial pressure of oxygen. See here. On x-axis, you see Hb saturation or formation of oxyhemoglobin is taken. On another axis, you have taken PO2, partial pressure of oxygen, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 mmHg. The saturation is measured by millimeter Hg. So Hb saturation 20 mmHg, 40, 60, 80, 100. Partial pressure of oxygen. These two are plotted on a graph in XY axis. We will get a sigmoid curve. We will get a sigmoid curve. S-shaped curve. Sigmoid curve. It is also known as oxygen dissociation curve or oxygen dissociation curve. Sigmoid curve or oxygen dissociation curve is obtained when Hb saturation values and PO2 values are plotted on XY axis on a graph. This sigmoid curve, see here, at 40 degrees, at 40 PO2, PO2, 75% of Hb is saturated by oxygen. So, just at 40 PO2, 75% of Hb is saturated. Then saturation level decreases at 100, yeah, at 100 PO2, you see saturation is up to 98%. Up to 98%, not 100%. Up to 98% Hb saturation takes. So up to 40 PO2, the sigmoid curve line is very steep. There it flattens, giving a S-shaped curve or sigmoid curve or oxygen dissociation. That is another important. And you see, the oxygen dissociation takes place at the tissues. Oxygen combined with the hemoglobin at alveoli. When it is transported to the tissues, HbO2 must be dissociated. So, what are the factors influencing the dissociation of HbO2 at the tissues? Important point. Factors. Next bit. Factors influencing the dissociation of HbO2 at the tissue. Another important point. What are the factors influencing the dissociation of oxyhemoglobin at tissues? You see, when the oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissues where PCO2 is high, hydrogen ion concentration high, temperature high, but PO2 is low. These are the factors prevailing, conditions prevailing at the tissues. When oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissues where PO2 is low, PCO2 is high, hydrogen ion concentration is high, temperature is high. Why hydrogen ion concentration is high, we will discuss in carbon dioxide transport. Because of hydrogen ion concentration decreases, pH value decreases. So, when hydrogen ion values pH low pH, acidosis. So, pH value decreases, pH value of the blood decreases because of high hydrogen ion concentration. So, these are the factors. By that, HbO2 dissociates, oxygen is supplied to the tissues, and in return, carbon dioxide is transported by the blood to the alveoli. What are the conditions prevailing in alveoli for the formation of HbO2? Right here. Here I will go. For dissociation, these are the factors. For formation of HbO2, what are the conditions prevailing in alveoli? One, high PO2, low PO2. Next, low PCO2, high PCO2. Because we are concentrated, you see, PCO2 is very low, 0.03. Low PCO2. Next, low hydrogen ion concentration. That means high pH, low temperature. These are the conditions present in the alveoli for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. What are the conditions? High PO2, low PCO2, low hydrogen ion concentration, high pH, low temperature. But if you come to the tissues, what the reversible conditions exist? High PO2 there, low PO2, low PCO2 here, high PCO2, low H concentration, high H concentration, low temperature, high temperature. This is for dissociation of oxyhemoglobin. This is the conditions favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. You write down these points. Definitely This is a concept oriented talk. Next one. Because of high hydrogen ion concentration at tissues, pH decreases. pH, so normally pH of blood is 7.6. When it decreases to 7.3 or 7.2, that means high hydrogen ion concentration or low pH or acidosis condition exists in tissues, then the sigmoid curve moves to the right. So the movement of sigmoid curve to right side because of high hydrogen ion concentration or low pH, that is what is called Bohr effect. Important point. The movement of the sigmoid curve towards the right side, is what is called Bohr effect. The Bohr effect is caused because of mainly low pH or high hydrogen concentration or high temperature or high PCO2. All these factors can move the sigmoid curve to the right side, a phenomenon what is called Bohr effect. So what is Bohr effect in transportation of oxygen? Dissociation of oxyhemoglobin because of increased hydrogen ion concentration or increased temperature or increased PCO2. This is an important concept with respect to the oxygen transport. Now we discuss the transportation of carbon dioxide. I think it is very clear to you. Carbon dioxide transport in the blood from tissues to alveoli. You say 7% in dissolved state, 20 to 25% as carbaminohemoglobin, 70% as bicarbonate ion. You have to write down all these 3 points. Carbon dioxide transport by the blood is in 3 forms. First form in dissolved state 7%, as carbaminohemoglobin 20 to 25%, as bicarbonate ions 70%. Write down these points very carefully. Next. Dissolved state plasma and it is transported 7%. Coming to 20 to 22%, 25%. Carbaminohemoglobin. Hb plus CO2. HbCO2. Important one. Oxygen is binding with heme group, but carbon dioxide in hemoglobin molecule is binding with amino group of the polypeptide chain. So CO2 is binding with amino group of polypeptide chain. That means each polypeptide chain is having an amino group. Attached to the amino group, the carbon dioxide makes the bond. So there are totally 4 polypeptide chains, 4 amino groups, and 4 carbon dioxide molecules are attached to the 4 amino groups of polypeptide chain. That's why the complex is called carbaminohemoglobin. Carbaminohemoglobin. That means carbon dioxide is attached to the amino group of the polypeptide chain of the hemoglobin. So one hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules, no doubt of it. But here also, one hemoglobin molecule can carry maximum of 4 carbon dioxide molecules. But the difference is oxygen is attached with part of the hemoglobin, but here carbon dioxide is attached with amino group of the polypeptide chain. That's why the complex is what is called carbamino hemoglobin. Carbamino hemoglobin. See here. Simple and wrong. This is one heme group, another heme group, 2 alpha peptides. You see, 2 alpha peptides, 2 beta polypeptide chains. Here oxygen molecules are attached. So oxygen molecule is making bond with heme group or iron. Ferrous state changes to ferric state where it is combined with iron. But carbon dioxide is attached to the amino group of the polypeptide. So similarly, 4 carbon dioxide molecules can be carried out by hemoglobin, one hemoglobin, similar to that of oxygen. Coming to carbon monoxide, another important one. Both HbO2 and HbCO2 are reversible. Whereas if Hb molecule combines